All right. So Canada's Trudeau announces bill to cap sales, going to cap the sales, the transfers, and the imports of all handguns in the country. What is this guy doing? This is nuts. Any of you that follow this podcast know I'm not the hugest proponent of gun rights, but but I do think they're important, and I do think we should be able to have them. This guy, what's he even doing? This is nutty. It's what we're checking out today. Basically, Canada's just going, yeah, we're taking away all your guns. Guns are a no-go. Yep, this is what we're doing. Kind of like Australia did a while ago. And people use that Australia example of, we did the voluntary gun buyback or the gun turn in, whatever it was. And we got a bunch of guns back. And, the stats have been kind of inconclusive on that. I know there was a study in New Zealand, or not New Zealand, but New South Wales. What university was it? I can't remember. But there was a study that said, hey, even though we took all these guns back, the level of gun violence, it's kind of indeterminate whether bringing all those guns off the streets has really helped things out, because you've still got a certain percentage of the nutty population that runs around shooting people. And then you've got the gangs just running around shooting each other willy-nilly without regard to anything. So there's that, right? All right. Those are some of the issues that we're facing. Seems like gun violence just across the U.S., I don't know, is it North America maybe? It kind of exploded with the whole coronavirus thing. Was it one of those things where, all right, all rules are off everything else. We're just going to do this with guns too. It's okay to shoot, willy-nilly anybody. Feels like that's kind of what's happened, right? I mean, the number of shootings we've had, just some of the violence that's going on out there, you're like, those numbers are increasing. And even if you don't follow the news, I think you're aware somewhat of, all right, these stats are going in a direction that maybe not the most positive for society. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau on Monday announced the introduction of a bill that would place a national freeze on handgun ownership across Canada. What this means is that it will no longer be possible to buy, sell, transfer, or import handguns anywhere in Canada. I'm not a Trudeau fan. I think that guy's a knucklehead. In other words, we're capping the market, he added. Why? Yeah. Because you're afraid of people taking up guns against government? I don't know. What's the deal there? You got one nut job, does something, you take guns away from everybody? I mean, if passed, the new anti-gun legislation will fine gun smuggling and trafficking by increasing maximum criminal penalties and providing more tools for law enforcement to investigate firearm crimes. Granted, this is all in Canada, right? These are our fine friends to the north. Trudeau, not a fan. He just does stuff that I'm like, yeah, no, not my kind of guy. The new legislation would also require that long gun magazines can never hold more than 5 rounds. All right, so majority of shootings take place with handguns, right? So all this legislation on this stuff, to me, I look at that and go, that's not really the issue. The issue is you've got people that, for whatever reason, mentally think it's okay to just run around and shoot people. Drug deal doesn't work out. Well, just shoot him. Well, guy took $20. I'm just going to shoot him. I mean, that's what we've got happening all over. It used to be a knife fight, right? You take out a knife and like do it up duel style like a man. Now you just take out a gun and pop somebody. Just no regard for human life. That's what I think we've got going on, is we've got disregard for human life, and people are just making up their own rules. And the rules right now is it's okay to shoot each other. Gun violence is a complex problem, but at the end of the day, the math is really quite simple. The fewer the guns in our communities, the safer everyone will be. Where there's communities where people are all armed, in the kind of more rural settings, they don't have a lot of crime there, and everybody's packing. So I disagree. I disagree with that statement. Trudeau added that while most gun owners use their handguns safely and in accordance with the law, we don't need assault-style weapons that were designed to kill the largest number of people in the shortest amount of time. I think the assault-style weapon argument, that's its whole different animal. Don't lump all guns into that, right? The announcement comes in the wake of 2 mass shootings in the U.S. On May 24th, a gunman entered an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. And okay, we know all about that. And on May 14th, 10 people were killed in a racist mass shooting. Okay, we knew about that. How about where the dude drove his car into a parade? Should we get rid of all cars? I mean, that vehicle was a weapon. That vehicle was weaponized, wasn't it? Do we get rid of cars? I mean, bad things happen to people who drive cars in a way that they shouldn't be driven. And sometimes that happens. And yeah, we're not talking about that, are we? Interesting. Yeah. Ending gun violence was part of Trudeau's campaign in the country's 2019 election. Good luck with that. If you run on that, you're a moron, right? In 2020, his government banned more than 1,500 types of military-style assault weapons just after Canada's deadliest gun rampage in its modern history. You know what? I think you can ban as many weapons as you want, but the guns are out there, and this is still going to go. If somebody wants to kill somebody else, they're going to do it. They're going to figure out a way to make that happen. And banning guns from law-abiding citizens, I just don't think that's going to have that much of an impact. The guns are already out there. How many guns do we have in the United States? 100 million, something like that? Is it a couple 100 million? It's a lot of guns. It's a lot of guns. You're not going to reel those back in. And even if you did, the folks that are doing the vast majority of shooting, they're using stolen guns. They're using somebody else's gun. They're not going into a gun store and buying a gun for the most part, handgun. They're getting a stolen one. They're, getting one somehow. Handguns were the most serious weapons present in the majority of firearm-related violent crimes between 2009 and 2020. So this is even in Canada. So making these arguments about assault-style weapons, all right, yeah, but that's not the majority. You know what the majority of, shootings are? They're like suicide. They're suicide. You take that out of the equation. I shouldn't say the majority, but a big component of shootings, gun violence, is people taking themselves out. Should that really count? If somebody makes a bad decision, it's kind of like, killing yourself in any different number of ways, drowning. Do we get rid of water? It's just, carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. Is it monoxide? Not the one that we exhale. Maybe it is that one, but the one where where you put your car and you do that whole thing and you just suck up do we get rid of exhaust systems? Do we get rid of garages? No, we don't. We kind of address what's going on. Somebody's making a bad decision and you go down that road. All right. Number of registered handguns in the country increased 71% between 2010 and 2020 to about 1.1 million. Whenever we have one of these shootings, everybody gets all worked up and they talk about doing stuff. They throw out a bunch of bills. The bills don't go anywhere because they don't usually have support by all the entities that they need to. Maybe in Canada, they're going to do this because it seems like in Canada, with the exception of those truckers, those guys were ballsy doing that whole protest thing. With the exception of the truckers, it kind of seems like the Canadian system is more compliant, maybe. Maybe this will work. I don't know. I don't really follow the gun situation in Canada nearly as much as I do in the US because it doesn't seem like it hasn't gotten the same attention. I'm not aware of it anyway, and maybe you're not either. And that's why I think it was important to read this one because Trudeau, some of the stuff that he was coming up with, it's like, you're basically a dictator at this point. You're a dictator doing your own thing. Whether the rest of the country backs you or not, I don't really know. But yeah, with you in charge, with you large and in charge, not inclined to go spend a bunch of time in Canada. That's kind of how I feel. Even though we've got Vancouver just to the north of us here, and that's a pretty epic city. That's a Vancouver, BC. British Columbia in general is pretty cool area. It's Pacific Northwest still. You got to go across the border. You got to do the border crossing at Blaine. That's kind of a pain in the ass, but it's kind of neat to be able to drive a couple hours and be in a different country and then you go home and you're like, wow, I had an international experience today. That was epic. You're just kidding yourself. You drove a little further north in North America, and then there you are. So, crazy stuff. So Canada, will this go through? I don't know. Does this even happen? I don't know. He's pretty convinced it is, but yeah, this would not fly in the US. Not flying. Every time this kind of thing flares up, people dig down. And I think just like, what was it during the Obama administration, people bought more handguns than ever or guns in general than ever, because they're afraid they weren't going to have the ability to do that. And, what goes through my head is, hey, I'm an American. I should be able to have an AR-15. I mean, why wouldn't I? I'm 53 years old. I've earned the right. I've made it this far in life. They can't take away my guns. Maybe I should just go out and buy one. That runs through my head. Maybe before they ban all these things, I should just go out and buy one. Do I need one? No. Would I ever shoot it? Why wouldn't I if I had one? But I don't think I really need one in my life, but don't take away my right to have one. I guess that's where I kind of sit. So maybe you've got one. Maybe it's the greatest thing in the world to you. I don't know. But, that whole 2A, it's a thing, right? All right. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. We'll catch up soon. Bye for now.